Hey everyone, Patrick here. I am so excited our series, the APAHM Conversations, was named a finalist for the second annual Signal Awards. To celebrate this, and as part of our campaign to try and win this thing, over the next 10 days, I am re-airing the series in its entirety. I hope you enjoy revisiting these incredible conversations I had with these amazing guests, and if it's your first time listening, welcome. I hope you enjoy them as well. After you listen, please cast your vote. You can find the link to do so in the show notes, on IG at Conversation Podpiece, or by going to our website, conversationpiecePod.com. Without further ado, here are the APAHM Conversations. Hey everyone, welcome to Conversation Piece with Patrick Armstrong. I am the titular Patrick, and this is a show where my guests and I discuss what piece of the conversation we aren't talking about but should be. Special shout out to all of my returning listeners, and a high five and hello to everyone joining us for the very first time. Thank you very much. The month of May is Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, or APAHM, and it's meant to celebrate and reflect on the history and peoples that make up our beautiful communities. As part of that reflection, this month, I'll be sharing 9 conversations with friends and folks I greatly admire in the community as we discuss those missing pieces of the Asian American conversation. What we know, what we might not know, and what we can do about it. These are the APAHM Conversations. My guest today is half Black, half Korean, adopted, a husband, father, and he's learning more about himself as he goes. It is an honor and privilege to welcome Rick Allen to the show. Hey, Rick.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
You are very welcome. It is a privilege and honor of mine. For those who may not know, Rick has been a guest on our other show, The John Chi Show, and I've had the pleasure of meeting Rick out in Seoul when I was there last October. And something that I realized in Seoul was just how much people like to listen to Rick's story. Rick is an amazing storyteller, and I love every single time we get to have a conversation, man. So I'm super excited to have you be a part of this series. Gave you a little bit of an introduction, but for those listeners who may not know you, can you tell us just a little bit more about yourself?
As you said, I am half Korean. I am a Korean adoptee born in Incheon, South Korea. Spent most of my life living in Northern Virginia, around the DC area. And yes, I am married. I am the father of a 20-month-old little girl. We live in Seoul now. We'll be here for the next 4-ish years.
Very, very exciting. Anything in particular you're doing out in Seoul besides being a dad?
I am eating everything I can get my hands on. And I mean, I still have a lot to explore. The city is quite big, and there's so many little alleys, nooks and crannies to explore, so many things to eat and drink. I'm doing the best that I can, but a man's liver is only so strong, so sometimes I have to dial it down.
I mean, when you're only drinking Cass and not drinking Terra, that usually is what happens, I think. It's very exciting to have you here, especially it's 10 o'clock at night over in Korea. So don't want to waste too much of your time with the preamble. So just want to dive right into the conversation. And I think you're going to be able to bring a unique perspective, especially now that you've been outside of the country, outside of the United States for a little bit. Like I said at the top of the show, the whole reason for this series is to address the pieces or parts of the conversation around Asian America that we think we should be talking about but aren't right now. What part or piece of that conversation do you think that we need to be focusing a little bit more on?
Well, I think when it comes to Heritage Month specifically, right, it's very easy for us to get caught up in the stories of people who are Chinese American, Japanese American, Korean American, obviously, but South Asia, points west are also Asia, and I feel like I don't know how we go about making sure that they are also a focus, but it's very easy to forget that India is also Asia, and we need to make space however we can for those folks also, because just because they're not thought of as Asia necessarily, the first off the tip of your tongue, they do count.
100%. And I think for you and I, especially, I think it's easy to go, or not easy, but I think that's a prominent thing in our minds because we can feel a similar feeling of maybe not being recognized as Asian for having been
Mm,
adopted. And for you,
yeah.
especially being mixed race, Asian and adopted, do you feel like you, I mean, do you feel like you have been finding your way into that space around Asian America, into that conversation? Do you feel like your experience has been missing as well?
Here and there, it's hard because being like a lot of the half Koreans that I know um, have were raised by a Korean parent, right? And
Mm,
so they have uh, that side of culture most of the time, and I don't really have that, and all that stuff I've learned on my own. So from like a storytelling perspective, it can be difficult for me to wade my way in because I don't have the same like sort of experiences as others do.
mm,
But I also think that, I mean, a lot of, I guess, traction for lack of a better word, that I've gained has been because I am a Korean adoptee, and like other adoptees and Korean adoptees specifically, like don't care that I'm only 50%. Um, and so I guess it's a little both, where sometimes I'm kind of like fighting a little bit for I don't know, credibility, and then, and then other times it comes easily.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard some people talk about themselves as being like 100% black, 100% Chinese. Is that something that you can resonate with, or?
I feel like I if I had to divide myself up, it's like it's probably closer to like 2/3 and 1/3, at least from a cultural perspective, because
Sure.
my parents are black, and I never found myself to be like wanting for like black culture, at least like in the DC
Mm.
area, right? But then, from a Korean perspective, I've over the past few years becoming more and more Korean, and so uh, it, I wouldn't quite say it's like a 50-50 split. I mean, I understand that perspective, right? Where it's
Sure.
very difficult to, you're not like pieces of a pie and you can't actually divide yourself up, but it's it's also it just feels like I have some ways to go before I can, really say I'm like what I'm just like black and Korean. There are no numbers involved, no equations. That's just who I am. I think the longer I'm here, the closer to that I'll feel.
I like it.
We're not there yet.
I like no numbers involved, no equations. I think that's a great way to describe it because I think we can get, like you said, we can get hung up a lot of times on those numbers or percentages. And then we can put some self-limiting beliefs on ourselves, like, okay, we'll never make it, or that the journey is kind of less significant than the end point,
Mm,
essentially, where you are wanting to get to this place, but you may not ever get there, and then you see yourself always looking ahead instead of being able to like work on or develop yourself during that period of where you would be reaching towards the end.
yeah, I gotta. I want to, especially we've been here, I don't know, what, 8 months maybe, something like that. And I want to continue to sort of live in the moment and not think too much about like acquiring all these like sort of cultural landmarks that I feel I need, and
Sure.
just enjoy the life that we have, the life I'm living, and let things happen as they will.
I 100% agree. I think that's something I've been working on a lot too. Is like, let's stay present in this moment, in
Mm,
this life that we have, and because it's easy to get caught up in the what if, and a lot of times we get put in that position by other people who may have good intentions, may not have good intentions, or may just be unaware of kind of the way questions or conversations can make a certain person feel.
yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a very interesting thing. When it comes to recognizing that Asian specifically is very broad and encompasses more than just East Asia. I know you said like we don't necessarily know or have the solutions yet, but from like an internal perspective, how do we address that from the Asian American community specifically going outward? Like, how do we address making sure that we are seeing South Asians, Southeast Asians, other people who make up the diaspora, and not as maybe East Asians trying to take up too much of that space?
So there was a story I felt like when I was thinking of like answers to these questions, right? I was like, there's got to be like some sort of like someone must have written at some point, right? Like this is like these are like the numbers, the statistics behind like because there are like inequities in like certain minorities and within certain minorities in the U.S. When it comes to like income and like benefits, like social benefits they receive, right?
Mm,
And there was like an NBC News article about this specifically when it came to the Asian community, and now I'm going to have to go and find it. Um, but where like you like for example, like Burmese people, very small segment of the population, but also like severely disadvantaged in
right.
comparison to like Koreans. And I think we have to ourselves. We have to have like a thirst for the knowledge to not take for granted. Because speaking again of like people from Burma, I don't know anybody knowingly who is from there. And so how
Sure.
am I going to find out, like learn anything about like their situation unless I desire to do it myself. And then I have to actually like go out and do that. Um, and I mean, I think that during the month of May is like a great opportunity to teach ourselves a little bit more about other segments of Asian population in the U.S. Um, because like this is probably the time when most people are paying the most attention.
100%. And I like what you said, like our an opportunity to teach ourselves, like May is, and then like that has to be something that we have to be willing to do. I think it's easy to just go about your day and not necessarily pay too much thought to it. I'm thinking about the National Asian Women, or wait, National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum, who just released their 2023 data about the wage gap for women, for
Oh,
Asian women, and disaggregate that data. So instead of it just looking like, okay, all Asian women are pretty close to that dollar line for every dollar that a white man makes,
right.
when you look at it, it's like, okay, maybe three groups are close to that. And then there's like 30 groups who are not anywhere near. And I think Burmese people are, one of the lowest on that chart. I think it might be like 61 cents to the dollar. Like that's a huge problem. And if we
Yeah.
don't, not only do if we don't have people outside of our communities address it, but if we're not addressing that, if we're not aware of that, it makes it a lot more difficult for us to then advocate or
Mm,
support those groups in fighting for whatever it is that they might be fighting for at the time, because we just don't know. We just don't have that knowledge. And we have to put it higher on our priority list, I
yeah.
think, in terms of how we go about doing the things that we do, because at the end of the day, we all make up part of a huge diaspora, a huge population. And the more we build empathy with ourselves amongst our own groups, not even just the ethnic diversity, but like people with disabilities, people who are adopted, people who go through these different things, people who are refugees. Like we think
Yes.
about all of these other identifiers that we don't necessarily always put on a list or we see on the bio card. And, if we're building empathy and solidarity amongst our own groups ethnically, we can start to do that. And we have a better idea of how to go about doing that for even more marginalized identities that we're not thinking about.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of building that solidarity, I think outside of like we have work to do on the inside. Obviously, when it comes to like this type of question, there's work to be done on the outside as well.
Yes.
So,
Indeed.
for folks who are not part of our community, how do they go about supporting us and finding themselves taking part in this part of the conversation that we're missing as well?
I don't know. It's like the more, so I've the more I've become vocal about the difficulties and struggles that like adoptees uh, face, whether it be transracial adoptees or just like adoptees in America. Um, I feel like the more I like sort of hammer at it, the more the like more of a difference it's making, right? And people who I never thought had like any real interest in learning more about like the plight of adoptees um, have sent me messages, thanking me for like putting it out there, and they didn't realize that this is like these various things within the adoptee sphere are a problem, and that's that building like allyship is like this is like the key to more people, because like it's very easy to be comfortable in our like little bubble, right? Where like
Right.
adoptees, like all the people talking about the adoptees, or most of the people talking about adoptees are also adoptees. And I read a lot about this stuff because I follow a lot about adoptees on Twitter and on Instagram. But then when we start to really sort of accidentally reach outside, and other people who follow us for other reasons see stories and perspectives that they perhaps didn't even realize that they were looking for, like then we have like a wider net that we're working with. And so I feel like I just need to like the more, I mean, not hammering at it, but like the more I talk about it, the more people outside of just like my adoptee circle will learn, and perhaps then they go a little bit further, and who are these other voices I should be listening to?
Right.
So it starts small, and it starts with us, and we just have to find ways to reach out and grow from there.
You are speaking my language. In your form, you wrote, how do we get outside of this echo chamber? And I love that, because I feel like I've been having that conversation a lot lately, especially about in the adoptee community specifically. It's like, we can have conversations with each other. We should. It's really important for us to be able to do that, especially for adoptees who are coming into their own awareness. However, I guess not however, and we also have to be able to step outside of that comfort zone and have those conversations with people outside of our specific community in order to like build that empathy. You said that sometimes, like for you, like it like can be accidentally stepping outside of the thing. Can you talk about, or can you share a little bit about what that might look like for you while you accidentally kind of get out of there when you're really just only having that conversation within the community, how that can kind of make its way out?
Yeah, I mean, people who I know in real life, or have, because like I'm a big soccer fan, right? So I have like a
Mm.
segment of my social media bubble is like soccer people, and then I I will start to notice like people in that sort of sphere start like liking some of my like adoption related stuff, and then commenting every now and again, hey, I didn't realize that this is like a thing that happens. Um, I had friends who like were adopted, and I just like never knew, because like on the surface, everybody seems so like well adjusted or whatever.
Right.
But then they have like a more of like a thirst for the information, and I'm more than happy to like explain like why parts of the uh, I don't even know the large like overarching like adoption like
The narrative.
well, I'm thinking of like
Or
sort of like demonic like things.
okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. For the listener at home, Rick is trying to, with his hands, anthropomorphize or try to visualize what we're talking
like
about.
adoption in and of itself, right?
Yes,
This
yes.
is
I
like a
get you.
thing that affects adoptees like far beyond when they grow up and into adulthood, and people go to therapy, and like whereas like a person who was born of their parents and grew up in with like a fully assembled family would have no idea. And
Yeah.
we have to have some patience, I think, with people like this, because they are the ones who talk about this to other people. And
Right.
sometimes I don't have the desire to answer a bunch of questions about like my trauma, but then other times I'm like, this is helpful in the long run,
Right.
to educating people who are not of our ilk.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, people who I never thought like, oh, I'm going to have a conversation with this person that I've known for however many years about this, because all we ever talk about is like soccer. But now here we
Right.
are talking about like adoption, and oh, maybe this person was thinking about adoption, but now they're not so sure because
Mm.
of all the trauma that's attached in like all of our lives. Um, so yeah, it's like maybe yeah, I never thought like, oh, we'll be talking about this, but having to be willing to do it because it's someone who is actually interested for a reason and not just a curiosity.
Right. I think that, I mean, a lot of it has to do with being able to set that boundary for yourself, like, and knowing, and like with some folks, like in that group, in your group of soccer connections, your soccer friends, like you at some point knew that you would feel safe enough to like share
Hmm.
with that person some of your trauma. And I appreciate you saying like I don't always want to share or like relive or rehash that trauma all the time, because, and this is something else that I've been talking about a lot lately, is that not just for adoptees, but for anybody who's been like severely not only marginalized but traumatized, like I think it's super unfair that we have to ask those folks to tell their stories over and over again in
Yeah,
order to get people in power and privilege to listen and be like, oh, yeah, that is a problem. Maybe we should fund this solution or think about this differently, or draft and try and pass legislation that addresses this issue. Like we
November
should
was
not
really
be
hard,
asking
man.
people to be like, hey, I know that you had just a real traumatic experience. Could you talk about that over and over again?
Yeah,
Like it's not like, it's just wild to think that that somebody should have to do that. And I think a lot of it goes back to this privilege of storytelling and the fact that it's a privilege for anybody to tell you anything about their lives, and that we take that for granted a lot. Like we expect
yeah,
or feel entitled to someone's story a lot of the time, I think. And we don't and a lot of times we might not be thinking about the trauma that or the discomfort that it might take or be causing that person that we're asking, hey, just tell me more about that, tell me more about that,
yeah.
pushing
You're right.
without really thinking about the consequences, whether our intentions were good or not. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's important to name. As we kind of start to come down on the other side of this interview, I appreciate, these action items that you give. I think they all, for both inside the community and out, I think they can all be kind of bundled together as just like listen to each other, make opportunities to be able to learn more about the different parts of Asian America, as opposed to just staying in that comfort zone, staying in that same bubble, both inside the diaspora and outside. For you specifically right now, who is inspiring you? Who is somebody that you're like, yes, I'm learning so much, or I love this person, and you think we should all be listening or following or learning from them as well?
Well, I am consistently learning from Liz Kleinrock in like ways that I never thought I would. Uh,
Yes.
because like when I first started following her, it was like on an adoptee level, but
Mm,
she is constantly like sharing her perspective, which is like frequently enlightening, and makes me think. It makes my brain sort of twist and consider things from a slant that I hadn't previously.
sure.
Um, Another person that is very recent. Her name is Mija. Uh, she has like a normal Instagram, but she's returned to Jung. She
Mm,
is a half Korean child of a Korean adoptee,
yeah.
and she's coming at it from a lot of different angles. But one that I never have really focused on is like a historical one, uh,
Mm,
as pertains to Korea. And like I've only recently just like met her acquaintance, but I'm when she is coming up with or sort of like re-gramming like other accounts and stories, like it's like a focus that I didn't really know I needed.
Sure.
uh,
This-
it,
well, I mean, as
it's
a father, you have a child who is now a child of a Korean adoptee, so
yes,
it makes
yeah,
sense.
and she's like her story's pretty deep, and um, I didn't think like I needed to consider like that angle, but I mean it's sort of like the struggle that I face as a half Korean adoptee, who like a half Korean who didn't grow up with like Korean culture,
Mm,
and now like the culture that I'm learning, I'm going to be passing along, and so I got to make
sure.
sure it's right, like it's and having it historically accurate is like a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely an angle I haven't really ever thought about, especially thinking about how do we pass down our histories that we never got to our children who look like us and also have a piece of that history, like are also a part of that history. Like, I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, honestly, that was the whole impetus for me going on my own personal journey was just how am I going to teach my kids to be Asian, to navigate
Mm,
the world as Asian when I
yeah.
don't have any idea about
I'm
how to
still
do that.
I'm still learning how to be Asian.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy following her account. Haven't had outside of some DMs, haven't really spoken with her like in depth at all, but she just posted, I think it might have been yesterday as of this recording, about like intergenerational trauma
Oh,
and like the three levels. And I really liked the breakdown of that. And yeah, I think it's important to approach it from that historical perspective because we have to go get it ourselves. Like that's
yeah,
the unfortunate thing. We don't have the conduit of a parent or a grandparent or even just being in the community. Like, and that's a whole thing in and of itself. Like if you were to be orphaned in Korea, then not get adopted internationally or even domestically, then grow up and age out of the foster care system, like you still kind of get the history,
yeah.
like that
You're,
ethnic or racial history.
you're living it.
But I mean, it's still a whole nother experience, obviously. But it's so interesting. And so I appreciate her and other folks who are of like this identity that we don't even really talk about yet because it's like so unexplored. I think I believe Adoption Mosaic, the organization Adoption Mosaic, is doing a panel soon that addresses something like this, like children of adoptees.
Oh,
So I'd be interested to see that. But that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Rick, it's been a pleasure having you on as we wind this down. As I said before, last question. Actually, I have two questions. Two more questions. The second to last question is a lot of people feel a lot of different types of ways about Heritage Months, specifically, myself included. I've wrote a lot about it. I don't think it matters one way or the other how you feel about it, but just wanted to ask everyone if they feel comfortable enough. Like, do you celebrate APAHM? Do you celebrate Asian Pacific American Heritage Month? And if you feel comfortable enough to explain why, would love to hear a little bit about that.
I do, but I feel like I feel about this sort of the same way I do about uh, African American Heritage Month.
Ah,
What's February?
yeah,
And it's just like it's great because uh, it gives people an opportunity to tell stories and sort of an excuse for other people to listen.
mm,
Um, but this is something that we have a duty to continue to do in all the other months,
right,
because it's to continue is to normalize,
right,
and one should not feel like, oh well, now that it's the 28th day of February, uh, that's nice, but it's over.
right.
It's like it's a continuous obligation that we have, I think, outside of, yes, to participate, um, because other people are listening, but also once the month is over, that's not where the duty stops.
100%. I love that. And I think you came up with a great tag. To continue is to normalize. I think we need to think about that, especially coming out of those months and realize that, the more that we continue to talk about this, the more importance and significance it takes on. And the more that it becomes enmeshed and ingrained in our societal fabric, I think. where we all are more aware and more mindful, hopefully. Right now, that seems like there's an attack on that, being mindful and learning about stuff that we should be learning about, but whatever, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
Rick, again, absolute pleasure to have you on. Last question. How do we support you? Is there any ways that we can support you right now? I realize that a lot of us listening are probably in the States and you're over in Korea, so it's a little bit hard physically to come up and support, but is there anything that we can do to support you right now?
I mean, I guess follow me on Instagram, Blazing Says. And I've to do some production work, but I filmed some stuff for the YouTube channel.
Okay.
Hidden Hangugin. It's been a while, but since I got here, a lot of stuff has happened. So I'm putting some stuff together. Hopefully, by the end of the month, I'll have it out, and so yes, you can follow Hidden Hangugin on YouTube, Blazin Says on Instagram, and we can continue the conversations there.
Absolutely. You heard it here, folks. Rick, thank you again. Really, really appreciate your time, energy, your story, and for just sitting down and having this conversation and being a part of this series, the APAHM Conversations. For everybody listening, you can find all of the links at Blazin Says. You can find his Instagram stuff. You can find the YouTube channel in the show notes here. And if you want to follow us, you can do that at Conversation Podpiece on Instagram. If you feel so inclined to leave a rating or review on whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, we would greatly appreciate it. And if you're interested in supporting the show in the future, feel free to hop in my DMs or visit my website, patrickintheworld.me. Until next time, I'm Patrick Armstrong, and this has been Conversation Piece. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.